And just let me pull the document. Are you all back?
Yes.
Yeah, we are back.
I'm sure that you will be excited to know this information, but at the same time you'll be a little stressed out. Oh, there is so much. So let's take it in small pieces and make sure that we all understand this really well. Okay, let me start sharing my screen. And over here, this is one. Okay. So if you guys remember, for Academy Mortgage Project, the Bank of America homepage was very similar to that what we had in mind, right? The only difference was that it was laid out a little differently, but the elements or the page, that the amount of content that we had on the page was very similar than what we were supposed to have. Correct? So if I click on mortgages here, and so this is the page that you have on Bank of America's site. Okay. Are you guys able to see two screens side by side right now?
Yes.
Yes.
So we have all heard so much about the Academy Mortgage Project in last 4 weeks, right? And we said that when you click on apply now, or when you put this information here, it gives you this calculation. From where does this calculation logically reside? How does this information translate here from backend? All we have talked so far in the class is about the front end, how to write the requirements, how should we initiate like creating the model house, right? But there are some more things that you want to know, how this model house will be converted to an actual house. And in order to do that, there are some kind of things that you want to keep in mind when you are developing a software. I want to talk about that today. So this is Academy Mortgage. This is Academy Mortgage. Do you all know what is database?
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit idea about database.
Okay. So database is nothing but tables. So if you see here, let me open an Excel sheet. So database is nothing but, database consists of tables and columns. Database consists of tables, and tables consist of columns and rows, right? These are rows and these are columns, correct?
Yes.
So this will be stored in, so let's say if I go to my folder here, in your laptop, you have a folder. I have a folder that says BA. Okay, that's a database name. Under this folder, under this database, I can have several tables. When I click on each of those tables, I can see columns and rows. Okay, now this database, which is stored here as a folder, this is stored somewhere in my hardware right now, right? Because it's a local folder. But you could literally save this on Google Drive if you want to. If you do that, what you're doing, you are storing this on Google server. Am I right?
Yeah.
When you store anything on Google Drive, you are storing something on Google Drive. Am I right about that?
Yep.
Likewise, when you save something on Dropbox or box.com, or when you store something on iCloud, you are storing something on Apple's server. Am I right?
Yeah.
So that's called server. server is hosted by a company, it's all cloud, right? All cloud-based servers. It's in AWS, it's in Microsoft Azure, or if Apple has something on its own, I don't know. But there are some servers where they will, it's called network drive. So like something like Google Drive, companies have, in their company, they have something called SharePoint, right?
Yep.
In SharePoints, you're able to store all these documents. Remember, if we, when we were doing the business requirement document, we said
Yeah.
there will be a link attaching in each document.
Yep. Share link drive.
Yes, share link. So when you create documents, it works that way. But when you're creating database, it works a little differently. But
Okay.
concept is still the same. You have server, under server, you have database, under database, you have tables, under tables, you have rows and column. That's the hierarchy it goes into. And so server, let me give you an example of that. When you are using your laptop, do you all know, right, that you get like 500 GB of space when you buy your laptop, out of which
Yeah.
about 220 GB or so, which is already occupied by system operations and the systems installed in your laptop already. But that's called hard drive, correct? And that's
Yeah.
of 500 GB. I think it's of this size, if I'm not wrong, and it's stored somewhere beneath your laptop. If your laptop gets corrupted, you could literally remove that hard drive and put it into some other laptop, and you will not lose your data. As long as you have not stored anything on desktop. If everything is in
Yeah.
C drive, you would not lose that data. Do you know this concept?
Yep.
Can I? Does everyone knew this?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is the concept we're going to feed on now. So in reality, when you go and work for big companies like Bank of America, Chase, or Wells Fargo, or any big company in the world, right? We had a small drive of 500 GB or in our laptop, which is local. These companies will have literally refrigerator-sized servers.
Yeah.
This big servers, and I'm not talking about just one server. I'm talking about like hundreds of servers in one room. Okay, these are all hard drives. Everything that comes from these websites, from Bank of America, from Chase, from Wells Fargo, from Walmart, from Amazon, whatever you name it, right? Any website in the world, when they are trying to fill in, like if I fill in this information, and I will apply now to submit a contact information to Bank of America's page, what's going to happen? It will go and hit that refrigerator size server somewhere in US, and it will store your information there in the hard drive. That hard drive is like really big one, because we are looking at 500 GB, but they would be looking at 5 terabytes or even more than that. So they need a gigantic space to store all this information, because they're getting more than 1 million customers every single day. So they need to make something which is very robust. Okay. So for that, they would build cloud servers, which would be, so these days people are trying to come out of that infrastructure where you have these big servers in one room, and you need to maintain the room really well. Temperature should not go down. There should not be flooding zone, and a lot of things you have to keep in mind, because if that server has gone down, you are gone.
Yeah.
Your company's data has lost. If there is no data, then your company cannot run without data. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have to be very careful on where you host these servers, and you don't host it one places. You host it multiple places in multiple countries, in multiple cities, so that if something goes wrong here, you still have the same copy of a backup in some other country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but this is, again, you don't have to remember this like everything what we are discussing right now. This is just for your knowledge. So now, these days, there is a concept that is called cloud server now, where you use AWS or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud, right? AWS is very popular. So companies used to manage all this information by themselves before. And there used to be an operation cost to maintain all this data. But now what they're doing is they're migrating all this information to AWS. So they're setting up their servers on AWS instead of setting up on their own, in their own database or in their own company, because it becomes easier for them. They just pay something to Amazon AWS, and they're able to manage it, and they're able to save a lot of money as well. So there are different ways. This is what an architecture will define. When someone clicks on apply now, what kind of connection it should have from the backend to pull what information and to take what information from the front end page here. If you do not have a proper connection here, there is a possibility where someone can hack the data, like putting some random information. They can get into your database and get all the customers' information. Or customers will not see proper information here or see a wrong information. Either case, there will be problems, right? So there will be someone who will be creating this architecture really well to make sure that what comes from the customer or what customer sees on the website first, from that point until what customer is submitting on the site, and on the back end what is being accepted, all these things are aligned properly to make sure that things are really well. Nothing is breaking in the entire journey, right? And there are a lot of things happening in between. We're going to talk about them in a few minutes right now. So over here, do you all understand the concept of server, database, tables?
Yeah.
This is the hierarchy. Server, under each server, there will be many databases. Under many databases, you'll have several tables. Under each table, there will be columns and rows. This is column and this is row. These are rows. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's look at the data flow diagram now. So when you build something like this, right? We just took some random example for Academy Mortgage. For any other bank, there could be other web pages and other tools. I'm thinking for the Academy Mortgage project, these are the few things we need at a minimum. So this is Academy Mortgage user, customer. This customer is going to use this page to calculate the loan amount or the monthly payments, to submit the contact information. In return, he would be able to see customers will be using this to find out his monthly payment for the property that he's going to buy. He could apply here using the apply now button, like submitting his contact information, or he could just view this information here. Okay, these are few things customer is doing on this page. What is coming from backend? Whenever you submit this information, you click on update rates. This is coming from backend. This information. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
Whatever you see on this page, right? This mortgage, refinance, home equity, all this, how it is being laid out, we don't know. All these things is being stored somewhere. These are the things coming from backend. There are some things which will come from backend, some things which will come from content management system. If you guys remember content management system, there are some elements on this page which were static or which could be controlled by something like wix.com.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some portion on this page which will be controlled from the backend. So for example, this entire widget can come from backend. Why? Because whenever I click on view rates, if I put a functionality where based on my zip code, it should show me these rates. Based on my zip code, this should change. Then all this information has to come from backend. Why? Because someone has to find out this is my IP address, convert that IP address into a zip code. Now for this zip code, these are the rates, these are the APRs, and these are the points. That information is stored in the backend, right? So that information needs to come from backend. So on this page, when you're doing analysis, when we did static versus dynamic, we have to find out what information is coming from content management system, what information is coming from backend on this one. If I go to my easy nesting site here, this is customer facing, hence we have a content management system here. But if you talk about the easy nesting dashboard here, everything on this website or on this admin portal is coming from backend. There is nothing coming from content management system. What is coming from content management system is this, easynesting.com. So over here, if I want to change this home maintenance to something else, if I want to change this to something else, I can change all those things on my own. But this website is made up using content management system. Okay, so I can change all these things here. But if I'm not able to click on pricing right now, but the moment I click on pricing, it does not being handled by content management system. Everything from pricing comes from the backend now. Why? Because based on your house size, based on your interest, based on your city, we have a calculation logic that will show you the prices. Okay, so I'm not able to click on it right now for some reason, but I still have to fix that bug. But overall, do you understand? So this is being managed by content management system, whereas my admin portal, everything that I see on the backend is coming from backend. On this website, the only thing coming from backend is pricing, right?
Yeah.
So on the question.
No.
Okay.
So when you're saying backend, you mean admin?
When I say backend, I'm talking about database.
Okay.
Backend is database, server, tables. That is backend. Okay. So when you go to Facebook, right? When you type your login and password, what happens? You are able to log into your own account. How is it possible that you enter your login ID and password? You are able to just see your information and not someone else's information, because that information is coming from backend, which is Facebook database and Facebook server has your information stored. The moment they find that unique ID, when you enter your login and password, it matches you. Hey, I have this unique ID. This is the same person. Show him all this information that is being stored on this database for this particular server. Sorry, for this particular customer. Am I making sense? So backend, whenever I say backend, I'm talking about server, database, and tables. Okay.
So here I have a question. When anyone will refresh the whole page, like for example, for the Bank of America, if we refresh the whole page, how it will process? Like everything is refreshing
Like,
from the back end?
it will process the same way like it processed the first time when you open this page.
Okay, got it.
Whenever you refresh, it will make all the connections again. Like whenever you are on Facebook and you refresh, it will make all the connections again to your database, and you would start seeing the post from scratch, from top now, instead of where you were in between, right? So if you have scrolled all half the way on your news feed on Facebook, now you refresh, you'll go back to the top page, top post, right? Because it initiates all the connections again. It kills the previous connection. It creates a new connection now.
Okay.
So over here, for each company, they have to have their own database. Let's assume that we are like we have 3 or 4 people in our family. Each of them has its own laptop. Okay. Now, when they have their own laptop, do you feel comfortable? Like, would I feel comfortable? All the information that I want to save in my laptop, which is very important for me, I would just save it in my laptop. Would you be comfortable with that? I would not be, right? I want to make sure that I have a backup copy of that. That's first thing. Second thing, would you be comfortable to not store that information in your laptop, but store it in someone else's laptop? I would not be comfortable with that as well. Right? Because I want to make sure I have a backup copy. At the same time, it should be stored within my laptop as well, because it's an important information for me.
Yeah.
Right? So for each company that we're talking about here, we're talking about 3 different players here. Empower. So we're talking about Academy Mortgage, Salesforce, and we're talking about some random tool, right? This could be Empower, this could be something else. I'm talking about 3 different systems here: Salesforce, Academy Mortgage, and Empower, just for now. Each of this company will have its own database. Whatever you see the cylindrical shape, that is database. This is database, this is database, this is database. These databases are hosted on some server for these companies. It could be AWS, it could be Azure, it could be Google Cloud, it could be anything. Are you guys with me so far?
Yep.
Now, what's going to happen? Why we have, first of all, 3 different players here, right? So if you remember, I said we could do the lead egg project in different ways. We could do lead egg, we could create all these queues in Salesforce, or we could build this entire logic on our side. So for this particular flow, I'm assuming we're going to use Salesforce here to manage our marketing needs. Salesforce CRM is what we're going to use. Okay. And for this one, so which means if someone clicks on apply now, they fill in their contact information, that information will go ahead and stored in Salesforce, and Salesforce will have the queues, and it will assign it to right loan officer. Everything will happen in Salesforce. I have this workflow system here, Empower or loan origination. This is a very popular mortgage system. It could be something else. I'm just taking one example right now. Empowered loan origination system is what I'm calling that. So these rates, the calculation of these rates is stored somewhere here in this system in Empower. And this is a user who has access to Empower system. On daily basis, this user updates this rate and feeds in that rate here, and that rate gets stored in Empower database here. Okay, so to have this page up and running, right, you need to have 2 different connections. First connection is whenever you click on apply now, this information should go to Salesforce, and Salesforce should be able to route these leads properly to a loan officer. That's one thing. Second, whenever you are going to receive information here for your rates, APR, and points, this information should come from another tool that is called Empower, which is managing this entire pricing engine for this company. It could be Empower, it could be any other company. I'm just taking one example randomly based on my knowledge. Cool? Do you guys understand the need of these two roles now? These two tools, Empower and Salesforce? Are you guys clear?
Yes, I am clear.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we are going to talk when you're creating functional requirement document, right? After that, there are a couple of things that happens. Designer will create this architecture. This is called data flow diagram. You help designers to create. When I say designers, I'm not talking about the UI designer, not the one who is creating the colors and layout of this page. I'm talking about the person, architect, right? Who is going to create this blueprint of the software, how one software should talk to each other, how one website will talk to Salesforce and Empower. They have to build this pipeline. So there are a couple of things that are happening here again. So when you load this page, right? When you load this page first time, by default, it has this information here. Do you guys agree?
Yes.
Which means when I, as a customer, when I load Academy Mortgage page, this is the direction it's gonna go into. Okay. You would never, any company would never talk to its own database directly. There is something in between that is called API, Application Programming Interface. What we are seeing here, this is user interface, because user is using this.
Mm-hmm.
This user interface, whatever information you are entering here in this user interface, the moment you click on update rates, this entire information gets translated into application programming interface. Okay. This application programming interface will collect this information from whatever you have typed on the website and will send it to its own database. And this database will now send you results. Hey, if customer has given you this zip code 95464, then this is the rates, APR and points you should be offering. This value is stored in this database. Are you guys with me so far?
Yeah,
So
can you explain? Can you repeat it how API will work? Because I'm confused when you take it information from this one.
There are two things that are happening here.
Okay.
Customer loads Academy Mortgage page. It calls Academy database to get this information. So Academy Mortgage website request for APR, rate and points, and database will respond it back with APR, rate, points and monthly payment here.
Okay.
And then customer will be able to see it here, this entire view. So whenever I load this page, whenever I refresh this page, on behind the scene, this call is already executed. It has talked to Academy database mortgage using API. They've sent data back in terms of API, and that got translated into this numbers now. And all this thing happened in milliseconds.
Okay.
Less than a second. If I refresh, you see, it takes less than a second to do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Are we clear so far about these two pieces?
Yeah.
Now let me tell you what is API. API is I'm clicking on apply now for you. So this is the form. Okay, this is the apply now form. Now, whether you build this form or you build any calculations or you build any other form, this is the method. This is how you build this. Okay. So you, on the user interface, you see first name, middle name, last name, suffix, phone number, phone type, and all this big list.
Yeah.
In application programming interface, it can be created in two different forms. XML, three actually. XML, JSON, and HTML. HTML is not being used that much. XML and JSON are very famous for this application programming interface. This is how it's written. It's this same form, it's just written in the form of code.
Yeah.
Load it properly. Okay. So, are you able to see this?
Yes.
This one, you see this first name, last name, work, home phone number, work phone number, or email ID, whatever that looks like, right? Country, city, first name, last name again. So whatever you have typed here, this will get converted into XML or JSON API. And how to differentiate between that? What is XML? What is JSON? So you see this open arrow and close arrow here. Instead of that, there will be a curly bracket. In your laptop, you see it, curly brace. JSON would look like this. Okay. So you see this over here, we don't have curly arrow, that open arrow and close arrow. We are having this bracket, this curly bracket, and then we close the bracket. So if you see there is alignment here, right? So there is one loop. This curly bracket starts from here, and wherever you see the end for this in the same line, that's one loop. Under that loop, we have several loops. So another loop is this one. For each person, we are going to collect this information: ID, name, family, given, email, link, and some other information, right? So let's go back to XML again. Same way. So this record ends here. So you see this record is just record. This is with slash. This means this loop ends here. In between this name, again, this is one loop. This is a loop. Under this, there is one more loop. Under this, there is one more loop. There is nested loops. Okay. And this name, again, name slash. So wherever you see this slash name, that means that loop is ending there. This is where the loop starts. This is where the loop ends. So under this name, we have first and last name. Under this record, we have name, we have email, we have city and country. So under this each record, we will have name, email, city and country. Under each name, we will have first and last name. So this is some hierarchy that they are going to build in application interface. Okay. This is the place where you do not know somebody is also sending your IP address. When I click on submit here, it can automatically detect my IP address, sends this information that this person is coming from this particular location, and this is the information I want to show it to him. What information? If I go to Bank of America, this is just an example. Okay, guys, Bank of America is purely an example. But this is how people try to build their own websites, right? So the moment I come onto this page, if I want to make this as my own zip code, right? So the moment someone loads this page, in this API, your location is being fed. Once you put your location, it will return with the similar response, but instead of this name, email, city and country, it will show rate, APR points, and this products and monthly payment. Now, system is going to convert this response into a beautiful response for you and show it to you in this way, in terms of user interface. So this is user interface, this is application programming interface. This interface talks to this interface or this API, and this API will talk to your database, and now your database is responding with the calculation information. API converts this information in this format, and now your user interface will be converted from this API to look it like this. This is the flow from the front end to the back end. Are you guys following me?
Yeah.
Is it difficult to understand, or you guys are following this?
It's easy so far.
It's fine, yeah.
Okay, so this is very important for you to understand. So if you remember in previous days, like probably 15-20 years before, when I was in school, I remember I used to use something called command prompt. Do you guys know CMD, command prompt?
Yes.
So
C ...
was looking like, right? I can put my information here, it will tell me what this is about and all those things, right? So even if you go to these days, when you go to Sam's Club or Costco or some other companies, right? When you tell some guy, hey, I'm looking for this product. Can you tell me where it is? This DOS system are still existing, and those people will literally use this black system like this, which is not pretty in looking. They will put the item code or the item name, and it will tell them in which aisle, in which section is that. It will be all on this black interface. Now imagine if you want to automate that process where you don't want customers to talk to your employee because their employee is wasting his time. If there are 1,000 customers coming every day, if they're asking these questions to their employees, employees are just rotating around. They're not able to do their work because they're answering the customer's question, but they cannot stop answering because it's a customer service that will get affected. But now if they want to automate this, can customer use this system? Customer cannot, right? Customer does not know how to use the system. It's very, very non-friendly system. So we convert this kind of systems into these pretty interfaces where customers can understand on his own or on her own, hey, this is how I have to enter this information. This is what I'll be getting in back. For example, the POS system when you're doing self-checkout at Walmart or at self-checkout in Kroger's or self-checkout in Target, right? Whatever company you want to choose. All these things that were executed on self-checkout counter now were executed by someone standing, like some employee standing there and helping you check out there. Correct? Are you guys with me?
Yes.
So they're converting those processes into user-friendly processes now. The biggest step is that when you want to convert any process into user-friendly processes, to make sure you give them really good graphics, you make it so beautiful, you make it so easy, they are not dependent on anyone to really create or to find this information. Now, if I want to go to Macy's and if I want to find a product price, I'll just go and there is some scanner, some small scanner there. I just scan the barcode. It will tell me what is the price for the product. I don't want to talk to anyone. Otherwise I would have wasted my time and someone else's time by standing in the line. That person is going to find out the price for me. All this bullshit is taken out of the process now, right? So this is what happens behind the scene. You put information here. So there are a couple of calls being made here. The moment you load this page, it will automatically make two different calls. One is to content management system and second is to API. Content management system will load the assets being controlled by content management system, which is this title, like the labels for these options, mortgages, refinance, home equity, and some static information here. Like this is a static language here, right? This is the static language too. But if you see, this is purely dynamic. This section is dynamic because based on your zip code, based on your location, this address or this phone number will change. When I click on apply now, it pulls in different information. So all these things is coming from database. Now again, it's your architecture's decision. What should come from content management? What should come from API? When I say what should come from API, I'm talking about eventually it is coming from database, from server, right? Because this API is a middleware in between user interface and the backend, which is database and server. So for each company being involved in this project, which is, we're taking Salesforce as an example, we're taking Empower as an example, in addition to Academy Mortgage, right? So each of them will have its own database and they will be talking with each database using an API. Am I making sense now?
Yeah.
Are we good so far?
Yes. Yes.
So if, for example, I am starting some, developing a software for some company, like for example, some bank.
Okay.
So
okay.
how do I need to connect with these database and servers, and how do I like?
You would not get access to this databases if you are hired as a technical BA or a data analyst. Then you need to get access to these databases, where you could write some queries and you could pull some results from these queries. And we're going to talk about that in some time, the moment we start talking about SQL. So you just need to know how many systems are involved from BA or a product owner standpoint, how many systems are involved, and which APIs we are calling here. You need to know that, because you need to document this. Which API will be called when customer clicks on apply now and they click on submit, which API will be called. We need to document that piece. All right. So let's move forward here. So Academy Mortgage is talking to Academy databases, but now there is some logic here. As I said, Academy Mortgage has hired 2 different vendors, Salesforce to manage their marketing needs and Empower to manage their loan workflow. It could be any kind of loan, right? Auto loans or mortgage loans. It could be personal loans. It could be anything. We have hired this tool. Or when we are doing insurance, right? For insurance also there is a workflow. When you apply for an insurance, when you apply for a health insurance, it will go through the process of different steps. Hey, did you have any pre-existing conditions before or not? There will be an underwriter in the insurance company that has an authority to say, should we bump up the rate based on the history of this particular customer, right? So there could be any system here, and there could be any marketing system here. These 2 systems could be built by your own company, could be a third-party product, could be outsourced for Wipro Cognizant to build something like this. It could be anything, right? But the bottom line is that there is one tool that we need that is managing the pricing and calculation of these rates, and there is one tool that we need to manage the marketing needs. Are we good so far?
So when we say the marketing leads, what do you mean by that?
Like managing the leads, assigning it to the loan officer, which queues we will be creating, all this will be managed under Salesforce.
Okay.
The lead project that we did, the entire lead project was built in Salesforce.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So over here now, there are 2 things that are happening here. Because these are big players, these are big companies, they will also have their own database. So whatever information we're collecting from Salesforce is collecting from Academy Mortgage, they would also like to save it in their own database. Because if something happens here, they want to make sure that they're able to reproduce that information and give it back to the client. It will be in the SOW that we are going to talk with them, like a master contract, where we will say that, hey, whatever information is coming from you, we are going to save that. Likewise for the Empower. So this is how it happens now. Okay, this is the flow now. As long as you guys have understood everything so far, this will be super simple now for you. So you come on Academy Mortgage page, you load this page. The moment you load this page, first call that is being triggered is to show these rates by default, right? So that how that happens. So you are on this page, you load this page, it calls Academy API. Academy API talks to this database. Now this database is talking to Empower database. This Empower database has this information, this rates, APR points, monthly payments, and this product fixed stored here on this user interface, which is being used by this user who manages the pricing, right? So whenever this person updates this pricing here, the rates or this number, like he can literally go and enter 2.875 to 2.975 today based on the marketing needs. The moment he does that, this information will be stored in Empower database. This is the reason we have used this tool. We are paying this tool, right? We are paying for this tool. So we cannot expect that Academy Mortgage is going to build all this product on their own now. We cannot expect that. So we have to build a pipeline. So we have to build a pipeline for Academy Mortgage database to talk to Empower database. Okay, and that will be again through an API.
Yeah.
Again through an API. So the flow is this person updates the rate here. This rate gets stored here. Now it gets stored here. It just stays here. It's a one-time process that happens here. This person can do it 3 or 4 times in a day. This happens for airlines. This is very frequent. There is no person here. It will happen automatically because it changes every single minute for airlines, right? For stock market, it's even worse. We cannot afford to have a user. There is a manual entry, and if there is an error, it's gone. Manual entry can be late as well. If I'm late by 1 minute, my stock prices can change completely. So this person, whatever this person is entering here for airlines and stock market, it can be automated. This process will be automated. Based on some conditions, some algorithm, it will automatically change the price in this particular user interface. These prices will be stored here. Now, every time when someone comes to Academy Mortgage, it calls Academy API, it talks to Academy database. Academy database will make another call to talk to Empower database. Empower database will send this information back in terms of API to Academy database. Academy database will send this information back in terms of API. This API will be converted into in the form of this beautiful user interface, and now user can see this. The moment you load this page, this call was executed. This call was executed. Whatever we just discussed, this entire call was executed. Are you guys following?
Yeah. So I have a question here. The Academy Mortgage database, does it contain, so whenever the empowerment or whatever the company is, will they save their data in their own database and the Academy Mortgage database twice or just one time whenever they process it from API?
As I said, right, as a big company, you also want to have access to that data, but because you have outsourced it with some other vendor, that vendor also needs to have that information to process their workflow and to make some decisions. So it will be stored on both the ends.
Okay, both ends, yeah.
That you're not storing it in Academy database because it takes a toll to create the same database that we have here. If you have to create here, it will take a toll on us. It will be extra work. Sometimes they will just let it live here, assuming that this is the system of record now.
Oh, so in case if they will lose in their systems, Academy Mortgage cannot.
That's why you create heavy dependency. So Salesforce, so whatever you store in Salesforce, not everything gets stored back in Academy database. That's why Salesforce is making recurring amount, right? Recurring revenue. So once people start using Salesforce, it is such an advanced tool that you can literally create databases or this tables and everything on the fly, like without requiring any developer's help. You can create this on the fly. So the moment you create that information will be stored in Salesforce database. But if you want to pull the information out of Salesforce and put it in your database, there is a lot of work required.
Okay.
And in the beginning, you may avoid that because you want to first make a product which customers are using, right? And slowly you develop a dependency, and now you cannot get rid of this product. You know, although it is so expensive, you keep using it until you have a solution to this or workaround to this.
Okay.
Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So second thing, what is happening here? The moment you click on apply now, right? There is one more thing that could happen. Based on your zip code, this information was displayed. Based on your zip code, this information can also be displayed, right? So there will be another API call that will control the phone number, working hours, and this UX link. So this is one API that will be called on page load. Second API will be called for this one to display right phone number, to display right loan officer information. So if you see on Academy Mortgage, we had a loan officer information displayed. You see this, find a loan officer based on the zip code. So the moment I put my zip code, I click on search. It's initiating that API call now, but it's initiating that call after I click on search, not on page load. But for Bank of America, if we want, we could probably load that page on page load. We can make it call on page load. Every time when a page is loaded, we need to display phone number and working hours based on the IP address of a customer. Am I making sense? So two calls would have been initiated at the same time. Just a second. So on page load, you're making two calls. So there are APIs can be invoked on page load or on certain events. Events, what are the events here? When I click on update rates, that's an event. When I click on apply now, that's an event, right? Event is like, it's a user generated action. So now if I, where did that form go? This apply now is very stupid on Bank of America, by the way, because if you see, the moment I click on that, see, this is making an API call. This question is being given to you from an API call. Based on whatever I'm entering here, it's invoking another API call behind the scenes. So there are multiple APIs. Just for the simple apply now form, there is a multiple API. If I say yes, what happens? Let's see. You see this, I get this. But if I say no, it does not show that, right? So when I enter my online ID here, it's going to call API. So whenever you log into Gmail, whenever you log into Facebook, the moment you put in your login ID and password, it converts that ID and password into an API, which is XML or JSON API. That API talks to the database, finds whether you have authentication rights or not, and now you are able to log in. Again, database will reply, this person has access. Okay, this person has access. That is one API. Second, if this person has access, give him all this information, show him all this information. So another API will respond back with all this information. So now when you're logging in, that entire response of news feed or your bank account information will be loaded in terms of user interface, and now you're able to see that. This is all happening behind the scene. So these API calls are being triggered. The only key thing to remember here is, from your interview standpoint or from the office perspective, is whenever you do any action, whenever you take any action on the front end, it will have its consequences, and it will call an API to get the information from the backend. Now, one API can call another API to get information, and there could be nested APIs in between. We don't have to worry about that. The simple concept is user interface information gets converted into application programming interface, and that talks to the database, gets information back, converts that application response into a user interface, pretty user interface. That's all, right? So over here, if you see, this is what I'm going to enter. So these are the visible fields. There are some hidden elements that you put, hidden elements. Okay, so you have about 10 fields on the front end. One of the hidden field would be your location, your IP address, right? So then in an API, you could add visible plus hidden fields in this API that goes to the database, generates the response, and sends you a response back. When you click on save and continue on this one, it's a little different. So this flow that we talked before was on page load, right? Now, when customer submits this information and clicks on save and continue, it initiates another API call, which goes to Salesforce, saves this exact same information in Salesforce. And this information will be going to Salesforce database, and this exact information will be sent back to Academy Mortgage database as well. Because we do not want to leave customers' contact information. Any business owner would not want to leave that. If I do that, then what I'm saying is I'm risking my entire business on Salesforce. There are a lot of other things that is happening in Salesforce. That information would not be sent from Salesforce database to Academy Mortgage database, like the queue details, how the queues are created, like how many leads were there in one queue, what is the time, how many leads were completed from that queue, how many times the lead got deprioritized. All that information we will not be able to transfer from Salesforce to Academy Mortgage database. Why? Because they already have tables to store that information. Academy Mortgage does not have those tables. So if they don't have these tables, how are they going to store this information? It's like when I say tables, I'm talking about the columns and rows, right? If you have, let's say if you have 100 students in your class, you want to collect their first name, contact information, first name, last name, roll number, subjects he can choose, and probably his house address. So you have this information for all the 100 students. But now let's say you are using another tool that is managing students' financial information, right? Now in that Excel sheet, you do not have columns to manage his financial information, but some other tool is managing that for you. Now, if you want to do that, save that information, you have to add those columns in your table. Am I right?
Yeah.
In real world, you want to create additional database and create those columns, but it will defeat the purpose of having another company with you. The reason you are paying another company is because you don't want to get into this mess. It's not as simple as creating just columns and rows, right? It's very complex than that, because there is some logic that gets triggered. Whenever you save an information, there is a logic, calculation logic. There are some other concepts that gets triggered, which you don't want to get into right now, but this is just for idea. So there is some information that you save in Salesforce database that gets translated to Academy Mortgage. And likewise, whenever you save some information in Academy Mortgage, that gets translated back to Salesforce as well, if there is a need. These are the decisions will be made by your architect. You will be heavily involved in communicating requirements with them. And there is one more thing that you do. This is called data flow diagram. Okay. You do data mapping in addition to this. This is where you will be talking to people who are experts for the Salesforce database, Salesforce UI, Empower database, and Empower UI, and Academy Mortgage database. You will talk to all these stakeholders to create something called data mapping after this data flow diagram has been created. Are we good so far?
Yeah.
If once you understand this, it is pretty simple. All I've taken 1.5 hours just to explain you that there is an API in between. Anything that you do on any of these user interfaces for Academy Mortgage, Salesforce, or Empower, it will invoke or it will call an API. API will talk to database. Database will send the response back. It will send an API response back, of course, right? An API response will be converted to a beautiful user interface again, and users will be able to see that. That's the only thing happening here. Nobody's going to ask you in the interview, hey, how this flow was working. When did you call this API? When did you call this API? Nobody's going to ask you this. And this will not be even very true for your own project, because every project is different. Every company is different. This is just an example. I'm sharing it with you, right? So when you work with your company, you would exactly know, because you have to ask, hey, how many APIs we are calling when we load the page? How many APIs we are calling? Which are those APIs? Give me those APIs name. And what exactly you need in those APIs. What are the responses for those APIs? You need to read them. When you read them, it will be in this format, either XML or JSON. There is a tool called Postman. Postman, just you can use this tool. This is for API development. You use this tool not to develop the API. This is not your job. What you use this tool for, whatever before this page is created, right? Before this page is created, if you want to test something, whether things are working properly or not, right? You can use this tool. So over here, as I said, now this actual process is what? I do not need to have this beautiful page. As long as I have the API can talk to database, and database will give me the result. API response can take that. That's all I need. This beautiful page is required only for customers, right? It's a customer facing page. But this page in general, we do not need it. If we are a technical person, we could live off of this only. I would not even want to build this. Are you guys with me? So when developers are creating this page, before they create this beautiful page, they would create this API, and they will use this Postman tool. This Postman tool where you can put the API link and all those things, and you can get the response back in terms of API. It will not look like this, or it will not look like this.
Do you have a picture? How will it show on Postman?
Postman, in Postman itself, it will give
Just
you.
to see that how will it look like.
You can just go on YouTube and search Postman. Yeah, you see this. Let me go back.
Yeah. Okay.
It will take me to find some.
Yeah. Please.
So this is how it looks like. Do you see here on my screen? This is the link.
Yeah.
This is the request, XML or JSON request that you put. So we have two things, request and response. Remember these words. We have to say request and response, not input and output. Okay. This is the XML request. So when you put this information here, like this XML code, you put this here. There is a link. You click on send. Over here, you will see a response now. And you see this format here, it says JSON. That can be changed to HTML or XML if you want to. And one more thing I want to talk about, I'm going to touch this topic in a minute, but at least you understand this is how the API Postman tool is being used.
Okay. And we use this tool for testing, right?
Yes. If there is no user interface available, because before they build the user interface, they're going to build this API, right? If this API is not working, that user interface is like of no use. It's like car without engine,
Yeah.
right? So they want to make sure that these APIs are built in parallel, or if these APIs are built first before the
User interface.
actual page is being built.
Okay.
But again, it might look a little more complicated, but it is super simple. All you're doing here is that you're calling, there are multiple APIs. Whenever you load the page, like there will be one API always, right? Whenever you load any page for any website, the first call that you would always make is for the authentication. What access this particular user has. Did he put the right credentials or not? Wouldn't that be the first thing that you would check? For any company, for any project, right?
Yeah.
Once you do that, then what things should I show to this particular user based on his permissions when he is able to log in? And those permissions, we have created this table here. So we just created this table here, right? Roles and permissions table in the beginning of our class today.
Yeah.
So this table is helpful now. This table's information will be fed in terms of API as well. And now you would be seeing only those elements on your page and not the other elements. Right? When you log into your bank account, you are seeing only your account information because of this roles and permissions table. So the API will make that call, will look at these permissions, and then will give you only information relevant to your page.
Yeah.
That's all is happening here. Before I touch the next topic, I'll probably give you guys a few minutes break because this can get a little complicated. We're going to talk about data mapping and SQL in next 1.5 hours from now.
Okay.
Okay, but do you think this is helpful? Does it give you a clarity on how the pages are being connected with the backend?
Yeah.
And again, you would not be creating this API and all those things on your own. This is purely for you to understand because you will be in these conversations when you're talking to developers or when you're talking to designers, architects in your interview or at your work. You need to understand these jargons and you need to understand what they're talking about. Okay, let's take a few minutes break and we can continue from there. Hey everyone, are you guys back?
Yep. Yes. We are back.
Yes.
Let's explore another animal today. Data mapping is, I really want you guys to understand this concept so that you could really talk about this, right? And this is going to be very, very helpful when we are doing when we are saying backend and front end and API, right? It's nothing but mapping, like RTM, requirements traceability matrix. What do? We have multiple documents like business requirement document, functional requirement document, test cases, technical requirements. We map all those requirements in one document. Do you guys remember?
Yeah.
We talked about requirements traceability matrix.
Yep.
Do you guys remember we created something like this? Requirement ID, requirement description, date, a person who has created this. We map this requirement with this one, and this one with this one. We created this Excel sheet. I think I've sent you a sample of it if I'm not right.
Yep. You did.
So like this, there is something which is called requirement and there is something which is called data. Data mapping is also required. Like for example, if you go to our data flow now here, we have 1, 2, 3 systems, 1, 2, 3, 4, and their responses. About 8 APIs, like 4 request and 4 response, correct? 3 systems, 4 request, 4 API request, 4 API response, and 3 databases, 1, 2, and 3. So we're talking about how many? 8 plus 3, 11 plus 3, 14. We're talking about 14 different places where data will be going from one point to another, right? So do you think we need to do it? If we do data mapping here, do you think it will be a good idea just to make sure that there is no problem at the end? This is where the problem comes in usually. Remember, I was giving you some example about the hotels.com. When I book a room from hotels.com, it takes my reservation, but when I actually go to the hotel and tell them, hey, I have my reservation today, they do not find my reservation. Remember, I was talking about this example before?
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Okay, so what happened was, I don't know if you guys have used this website before or not, hotels.com. So over here you could book your, wherever you go, right, you can probably book some hotel from here for your stay duration. It could be for 3 days or 4 days, right? So usually what I do is I use this website a lot, and I've come across this scenario a few times now in last probably 6 or 7 years. So I book a hotel from here, it gives me a receipt, it gives me an email, sends me an email that, hey, my confirmation is there, my room is booked for this particular hotel and I'm good to sign in whenever I go there, right? Now, when I actually go into that hotel around like 1 or 2 in the night, right? After taking care of whatever business I had to, right? I go to the hotel and I tell them, hey, I want to stay here now, I had a reservation. They are not able to pull my reservation. They are saying that you do not have any reservation. We did not book any rooms for you. And just imagine how frustrating that experience would be now. So it's like 1 in the night, you are with your family and someone tells that there is no room, whereas you have booked this room in a month advance.
Exactly.
Right? Why this happens? It happens because of this. The data that has gone through hotels.com. So hotels.com is the vendor here. Let's say this is Marriott, right? And this is hotels.com. So the information was saved here that my reservation is here in hotels.com, but this information was not sent back to Marriott.
Oh, okay.
So now this Marriott, when Marriott is talking, Marriott is not going to pull this information. Marriott is going to pull information from here, right?
Yeah.
So now Marriott does not get that information because it's not there. So there was no pipeline from here to here. Now there is a problem. So is it just me who is getting impacted? There are so many customers being impacted now on this, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
So if you don't make right decisions, how data should flow from one system to another system, from one database to another database, from one API to another API, if you don't make right decisions, these are the problems you will start facing. Another example would be, you all would have some examples in your mind as well. It doesn't have to be my examples, right? But I think me and my wife went to Las Vegas probably a few years ago, and we got late to come back to the airport because I had to drop off the car at some location. I felt it is at the airport, but then I realized that it was within the city. I did not read the address properly. So now I had two options. Either I could leave the car at airport, which could put me in dangerous situation because if anything happens to that car, it will be on my name, right? Or I have to go back to the city and drop the car there now and then take a cab and then go back to the airport. So of course I chose the later option. But now when I reached there, of course I lost my flight. I cannot. I was like late by like few minutes, so they did not let me even enter into the security check-in. So I got stuck there, right? So now I was looking for flight prices, and I think if I remember, I checked for like 8 or 9 different websites. Of course, prices were so high because I was booking tickets at the last minute. I found one at Delta, which were for a couple of $100 per ticket. So I straight away went to Delta's checkout counter because I was not able to process the transaction online. And I told them, hey, can you book these tickets for me and my wife? So they said, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. So they took my credit card, they ran through the entire application, and like they booked the tickets. At the last step, it failed. They tried again, it failed again. They tried for like 3 or 4 times. And by the time they tried on the 5th attempt, the prices bumped from a couple of $100 to $1,000 each. Now they were telling me that, hey, we cannot honor the same price anymore because the price has changed. So now I'm stuck there, right? So I actually questioned them. Being an IT engineer, I knew that there is something wrong in their system. I actually questioned them that, hey, you made me wait for 30 minutes to buy tickets from you. If you could not run the transaction, you could have told me in advance. I could have booked some other tickets from some other company, right? First of all, I wasted my 30 minutes, assuming that you are processing my ticket. If your system does not work, if your system did not take my transaction for the car that is valid, it is your fault. It is not my fault.
Yeah, true.
Because of you, I got late by 30 minutes and the price for the flight has changed now. I would appreciate if you can honor the same price that you have given me before.
Yeah.
Right? And they called the manager and we just had some conversation. It was a casual conversation, right? And I told them that I'm an IT engineer and it is completely flaw there is completely flaw in your system. Because what was happening? This is Delta. Okay. When Delta is contacting the database, this API, when it talks to them, they get some result, right? Now this result were not same as this result, which is their pricing system. There is a pricing system which is putting this database in there, which is putting this price information in this database. So this database was not talking to this database every single minute, or maybe it was talking every single hour, not every single minute, because of which they did not get this information into this database for next 30 minutes. And because of which the transactions were failing because the price has already changed. Right? Yeah. So there was some communication error between the pricing system and between the Delta system, because of which this transaction was failed. So there are more examples. I think if you could think about these examples on your side now, you can probably relate now. When data is not there or when data does not flow properly, this kind of issues can come up. Right? You might have seen sometimes your flight is like the same seat number is given to 2 different people. When the flight is already booked, they've still sold tickets to someone else. When you go to kayak.com, you click on I want to buy this ticket and the price changes. Right? Yeah. When you go to Amazon, it shows you there is a product available. When you click on it and the product is not available anymore. Out of stock. Yeah, right? All this thing happens. Why? Because of data inconsistencies. So requirement is one thing. If you have requirements written properly, it can really work well. That you can create a good software, the good user interface is created, there is all the error scenarios have been covered. But what if data is not going right? Right? And this data is extremely important. So that is why we create something called data mapping document. This document, if you ask me, I've created only once in my life, like 9 years ago. If you're in Agile, you would not even create this document. If you are into technical business analyst role, then you might have to create this. Or if you are working on a project where you have a product owner and a business analyst together in Agile world, then you will be creating this as a business analyst. But this is a very rare scenario where you have to create this document, but I still want to talk about that. What is data mapping? We are mapping the data that is coming from here, going here, 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 and here, and there is an API in between. We need to create a mapping for that. And I'll show you a sample document that we have created for this. Data mapping. But do you understand now how important data is? How discrepancies can be caused if there is inconsistency in the data?
Yeah.
So this is a sample document for data mapping. Okay, this is the framework. So if I go here, so this is how you have to find out. So if you remember, we talked about two things. We talked about visible fields and invisible fields, right? Invisible fields are the hidden fields that API needs to process a decision. Do you guys remember that? We just talked about it like an hour ago.
Yeah.
So this is how I'm going to map my data. So on Academy Mortgage page, I'm first calling the page name, mortgage home page. Location on the page is customer contact info pane. Field label is first name. This is what I'm going to talk about, alphanumeric. So let's have side-by-side comparison. So over here, again, I have to go through this stupid form. This is really stupid the way they have created the apply now form. Very, I don't know, for a company like Bank of America, this is a very poor experience. So over here, so this is the, so this one is the lead ag form, right? Or the contact form. If you are doing the data mapping for this, you have first name, middle name, last name, suffix, about 15 fields on this page, right? And there is a type. This is a text box. This is a drop down. And this is radio button. This is a checkbox, right? In this drop down, you have these options, correct?
Yeah.
These options can also be coming from API, just for your information. When would you use the API for this? So it is very difficult for someone to manage the list of countries and list of cities or list of zip code. So you use Google API to get you this information. Date of birth could be a numeric only field with this slashes in between. Social security will be with this format only, numbers only, right? And there is an agree condition. You click on this and then you click on save and continue. So over here, you need to call this page name. This is the contact form. So first is on contact form. Okay, now I can see this. So over here, serial number, of course, no need to explain that. So page name is contact form. If I want to put contact form here, location on the page, it's this page, this section, the contact section. Please to meet you, this section. So I will say, please to meet you, the section name here. Field label, first name, last name, email ID, telephone number, product type, product state, URL, all this information that we're asking here, right? All this information I will put here. These are the field labels. I will put the exact labels. Okay, there is no discrepancy here. It has to be exact. If A is capital here, it has to be capital. If there is space here, there has to be space here. I will have to call the exact label names here. What I see here, I will put it here. And now I'll call out the data type. Over here, anybody can enter numbers, alphabet, and special characters, right? So I want to call out that as an alphanumeric. Alphabet and numeric numbers, both you can accept both. Varchar 150. It can accept an email ID up to 150 characters long. If an email ID is more than 150 characters long, it will not accept that. Numeric only, which is for SSN or which is for date of birth. URL is for 1000 characters. I'm saying here 1000 characters because URL can be, if you see this, I compare this and I open this in, you see this URL is so big, but if you go to Google and just look at this URL now, Google mortgage. Now look at this URL, okay? It's an advertising URL. Did you see this, how big this URL is? Did you see this? Because it has all the marketing parameters attached to it. what particular page, what section, what type of ad, what when user has clicked, it has. And let's bifurcate this URL and see what it entails. Okay, it's a very interesting thing. Word. You see the URL size? How many characters is that? Try to look at the, okay, it's 0 words. 1,381 characters with no spaces. With spaces it's this. Okay, because it is just all one word. That's why there is no space. But if there is a way you can count with space and without space, right? So this particular URL is about 1,400 characters long. So if I put a condition here that whenever you enter a URL, it should be less than 1,000 characters. More 1,000 is like it can accept variable characters, which means it can accept numbers, alphabets, and special characters up to 1,000 characters. So this condition will fail now, which means if someone enters cut and paste this URL, either it's going to take the half URL or partial URL, or it will not accept this value now because this URL has 1,400 characters instead of 1,000 characters. Are you with me?
Yeah.
And this will automatically get added the moment you click on. So if from here, if I fill in this form and if I click on next, this URL will automatically get added in the URL field now. Why? Because it has these parameters that is important for marketing team to find out from where exactly are we getting lead. So let's read this little more, what this consists of. Okay. So we have this PID, that is a big ID. I don't know what that is for. This is the UTM source, UTM medium, UTM term, UTM campaign ID, UTM some other number, UTM. And again, I don't want to, I think it will, let's do this. Wow, so many UTM variables, that's crazy. So you see your information is going here now. This is very important for you to see. Terms, 30-year, 15-year, purchase loan terms. You see this? Purchase loan terms.
Mm-hmm.
Then it says points changed, no. Search changed equals true. Mortgage type is refinance. So refinance, purchase loan terms, credit score is 740, zip code is 7053, 75035. Veteran status is no military. No, I don't have any veteran status, so it says no military status. First time home buyer equals false. So all this information, and again, we have so many information below this, you see here, right? This is what can be used. If a customer comes in, we can use this data in 2 different ways. We could use this information and pre-populate this entire form if I want to. I could pre-populate this entire form. And these are the values. If you see this now, refinance 75035, property value, loan term, credit score, loan amount. This is what exactly was stored in the URL here. When I change anything here from 75035 to 7540, and if I change this to 20-year fixed, and now if I click on submit, right, or next, this URL will have this updated information now, which means whenever this information will be sent or stored in database, lead officer, loan officer would exactly know what customer was browsing for on this page. So you can ask, hey, I saw that you were looking for a loan which was for $500,000 and you are from zip code 75035. Is this right? So imagine the customer delight factor, right? When there could be 2 options here. Either customer can freak out that, hey, how did you know about this? Or customers will be happy that, hey, you already knew what I was planning to buy, which means your website is really good. I'm really happy with that, right? Let's talk about it. So you delight the customers. So when loan officer calls out a customer, the interaction gets really smooth or really bumpy. It depends on how customer portrays this. So they will do something called A/B testing. A/B testing is nothing but you one time you loan officer will call and say that, hey, this is the information that you're looking for, and another call he will not say that, and he will try to see how many customers were happy and how many customers were disappointed when we did not do this. And based on the result, they'll define an approach. If 90% customers are happy, we should always talk about these things. But if legal team tells you that, hey, 10% customers who are not happy, they can sue you for this because you are capturing the data without letting them know, then it's a big no-no. You cannot still call out this information. Am I making sense to you?
Yep.
Right? So all this is data. So data starts from URL. It goes to here, like it's pre-filled these values. From here, when you click on next, it goes to the API. API sends it back to the database. Database will send back the result. It will again look in this format here. And now this URL will be updated, and now it will be saved in your database. So all this thing is happening. We need to call out the locations of this page. Page name, which section of the page, and which field label. So through three things: page name, location of the page, and field label. And what type of field is that? So over here, when we are showing credit score, these are the credit score ranges that we have to show. So I will be saying it's a drop down, and I would be showing this exact ranges. This is how it should look like. Okay. So now that's just for Academy Mortgage. Now all this information will go and sit in Salesforce, right? Salesforce is an admin portal, just like this. So over here, whenever a user submits their contact information, they will fill in their first name, last name, and they will fill in that information, right? It comes here. Whenever a new user comes here, I will see it in this way. I have these fields in my admin portal: name, email, phone number, neighborhood, address, city, state, and zip code. So whenever someone submits information from here, this information should be mapped to this particular page of admin portal and this particular column of the admin portal, or this particular field of the admin portal. Am I making sense? So over here, I'm calling this as first name. Over here, I'm just calling it as name because first and last name are combined here. But over here, I'm calling them a separate field, first name and last name. Over here, I'm calling it as email underscore ID. Over here, I'm just calling it as email. Over here, I'm calling it as TEL. Over here, I'm calling it as phone number. Right? So there could be different labels because each system is different. So there will be different labels. Now, from here to here, there is something more in between, which is called API. API is our XML thing. We just looked at that, right? Where did it go? Over here, we have these names: first, last. So over here, if you see, it says first name, last name. Over here, it just says first and last. Then email, then work or home, then city, then country. So you need to map this page, this location on this page. This is the field. This is the data type. This is mapped to this particular first name of this particular API. So you need to give the API name. And this thing is mapped to the admin portal, which is Salesforce portal. And it should go to this name section here and this email section here. Are you able to connect these dots? I am calling out the only reason for doing data mapping is that when someone submits some information online on the front end, that information should go into which systems. I'm saying which systems, plural, okay? Because it can go to Salesforce, it can go to Empower, it can go to API. Which systems and which API? We need to find out those names and what that parameter should be named as in that particular system or in that particular API. I need to call it out. That's all I'm doing in this document. So for every system you have or every API that you have, you're going to have these 4 columns: name, location, field label, and data type. So for Salesforce, we're going to again have the same thing. So this is all for Academy Mortgage. And now for Salesforce, sorry, this 5 is, no, I'm not on the right section. Okay, now I am. So from here to data type, up to from A to E, this is all for Academy Mortgage. This information should be stored in Salesforce. Where is that? Salesforce page name, location on the page, field label, and data type. Do you see this? Now I will repeat the 4 columns for Empower. Empower page name, Empower location, field, and data type. and now there will be API. API name, API element name, and data type. Where it stores in database, you need to capture the server name, database name, table name, and the column name, and data type. So ultimately it sits here, right, in databases. So let's go back to data flow diagram again. So whenever you talk about database, there are a few things you want to call out: server name, database name, table name, under that table, which column it will utilize to store first name. So I'm talking about those things, and I'm talking about the database for data mapping. When I'm talking about the API, I'm talking about the API name, API element name, which is this first, last. I'm just calling it as element because that's how we used to say in the company. Country, city, these are all elements. And the data type, whether it is accepting true or false, whether it's a radio button, all this information will be translated here as well. And in the database as well, I have to cover that data type. So data type, page name, location, and the exact element name. I want to compare this in front end, this in API, and this in database with all the systems involved in the company for this particular project. So I have to create this mapping document. It becomes pretty extensive. You will create this document, but you will work with all the stakeholders to create this document. And if you are in Agile, you would not create this document. If you are in Waterfall, 5% out of like 5 jobs out of 100 jobs, if you are going to work, you will probably have to create this document. It is that extensive, it is very time consuming, and usually people leave this on technical people these days than a BA. Does this help you understand what is data mapping? Pretty extensive?
A little bit, yeah.
It is,
But at least we got the idea
yeah.
how it is, how the system is, how the process is.
Yeah, and you need to, I think as long as you get that idea, that's more than enough, because in companies, they will have their own document templates. You have to use that template, you have to use the resources available in your company and then create this. But I think this example is really helpful and very handy for you to understand, at least if there is a data flow diagram like this, if there are like 3 systems, 3 databases, and about 8 APIs involved, right? How the data mapping should look like. It should be something like this. And it's pretty simple, right? We're just talking about the name, location, field label, exact field label in all the systems, and the type of that. Type is very important, because if on front end you say it should accept 1400, but in your API you say it should accept only 1000 characters, then there will be issues. It should be all 1400 at least or more, right?
Mm-hmm. So it's a generic question I wanted to understand. So for example, if we talk about the Facebook, and we have already talked about the lead sources. So Facebook is one of the source for the leads for many of the companies. So how does API happens from Facebook to the company? For example, I'm Academy Mortgage and I have given access, I've given marketing rights to Facebook. And as a user, if I go to Facebook, I give my information to Facebook, a very generic information like first name, last name, and phone number. How does Facebook gives that information to Academy Mortgage, and how do I convert it into a lead?
So Facebook is a very different kind of marketing than Google, right? When you convert the lead, when you open Academy Mortgage in Facebook, you are still within Facebook. You are not coming out of Facebook and going to Academy Mortgage website. So when you do that, there is a campaign management. There is something called Facebook Insights. It will show you how many users have interacted with this particular post, how many clicked on that, how many clicked on the website link from that, right? So when it goes to the website link, Facebook charges you amount right there and then. And on the top here, when there is a link that will be created, it will say something like Facebook ID or something on those lines. So which means for a company, they would know now this particular user has come from Facebook because there is a parameter being added.
Okay.
Right? And now for company, they would evaluate. From Google, I got 100 leads. From Facebook, I got 500 leads. But for Facebook, I paid $50,000. For Google, I just paid $5,000. Which one is more important to me now? Where should I invest more money? So they're going to this kind of funnel analytics. from which lead source, how many leads did we get, how many did convert, how much was the profit, and how much was our spending on each customer to get a customer.
So that's a different system altogether.
Yes. So if you know Google, so Facebook ads, when you're doing Facebook ads, right, you might have seen sometimes sticky ads. Like
Yeah.
if you have searched for one product online, when you go to Facebook, surprisingly now you will start seeing those kind of posts. Like if I search a lot on the content training, right, like IT training. If I do that, my entire newsfeed is filled up with the different type of IT trainings.
Correct.
Right, because it's a sticky ad. So what has happened now? So Facebook, the moment I logged into Facebook, so there is some communication happening between Google and Facebook now. It drops the cookie. Whenever I do anything, it drops the cookies in my cookies folder here. History, right? Whatever tabs I've used. It will show me it will drop the cookies there. Now based on that cookies, so whenever you open Facebook on your browser or on your phone, and the worst part is that whatever you do on your phone, it will also be tracked for your website. Like whenever you go and open the Facebook site, it will still show the same results because for them it's one user. So instead of capturing different devices, what they're doing is they're capturing particular user. So one user can have multiple devices, and they are capturing your browsing history across multiple devices and showing you a unanimous news feed on all the devices now. Right? Is it making sense? So what they do, they look at their cookies, browser cookies. Based on that, they will start showing you sticky ads. If you delete your cookies, it will not show you those sticky ads anymore. So Facebook has an API which would look at your cookies, pull that information. Now it will match that cookie result with the database of advertisers, and they will pull the matching advertisers, pull it back, and shows it on your newsfeed.
So they're throwing different options of the product, or maybe, if, for example, if I search for a car, so the Facebook is throwing different options of different cars or maybe different brands. It is up to me as a user, do I want to click on that option?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And in Google, it's a little different. In Google, so Google is pretty much very, very different than Facebook. So over here, Google works on keyword, right? So when I used this keyword, I've dropped a cookie on my browser that I'm looking for something called mortgage. Now, when I go to Facebook, if Facebook reads that cookie, I can get some sticky ads related to mortgage now. But Google works on keyword, okay? On keyword, and again, Google controls the Google Chrome. And if you open Facebook on Google Chrome, then Google Chrome has dropped a cookie which is being used by Facebook for a sticky ad now. But this is a little different. I come here, I click on mortgage, I say mortgage, I see these ads. The moment I click on this, Google is charging me 50 bucks. Mortgage or loans is a very popular word. They would be charging me at least $35 to $40 the moment I click on this website. So if you randomly go and click on any of these sites, instead of clicking on, say if I do this Bank of America, so you see Bank of America is not there in the advertise right now. Right? But if I type mortgage, now there is an ad. This is the ad, and this is also ad. You see this ad here? Now when I click on this link, Bank of America will be charged $50 right away the moment I click on this link. Right away. Whether I have converted this customer or not, Bank of America has to pay the money. So there's something called click cost to click. What was that? CPA, cost per CPC and CTA, something like that. I forgot the name. Cost per click and cost per conversion. So this is cost per click. The moment I click on it, Bank of America has to pay $50 to Google, and now it will drop cookies. It will drop cookies in Google. It will drop cookies in Google saying that, hey, this particular customer has clicked on Bank of America ad number 2, and when he clicked on this ad, let's see what happens. I don't want to spend their money, but let's see. This is where it takes them, right? So this, you see this URL now?
Yeah.
This URL is generated. When this URL is generated, this URL will be in your cookies for at least 9 months to 12 months. Which means hereafter, if this customer submits the mortgage from Bank of America or buys any other product from Bank of America, it's entitled to Google because customer first looked for Bank of America from Google. So Google gets all the credit for this. Up to 9 months or 12 months, it depends on company's policy. Sometimes if you clear your cookies, then this will not be available in your cookies anymore. So they will not able to match it. So as a user, when you go to Bank of America from here now, from here after now, it will say that, hey, this customer has also clicked on Google Ads and now he's clicking on Bank of America. Maybe he has liked Bank of America interface after going through Google Ads now, and this customer is a potential customer for Bank of America. So they do all this mathematics behind the scene, but they cannot do all this mathematics without sending this data in a right way. They drop these cookies, right? So this is how Google works. Facebook is very different, right? Facebook is like on the spot. You click on a link, they charged you, you submit your lead and you move forward. You start seeing sticky ads. On Google, you don't see sticky ads, right? Google does not show you sticky ads. So there are different search models and it all depends on how it works. So over here as well. So I was giving example of command prompt before, right? If I want to search a product in Costco, as a customer, I go to the Costco's employee, I tell him, hey, where can I find apple juice? I'm not able to find it, right? So he will type this in DOS here, and he would say apple juice for this company. It will show them these results, and he will tell that to customer, and customer will go there, right? Now this is all in command prompt. This search function is not user friendly, but what Google has done, they made search features so user friendly, where you just go and type anything here. What's happening here? The moment you type mortgage, it's calling Google's API. Google's API is returning 900 million records in less than 84 seconds, less than 1 second. Do you see this? So Google's database is throwing back 900 million records. Each record will have this. What is a mortgage? Each record will have the URL on the top, the question, this is called blurb, the text. This is another one, right? If I scroll below, this one has multiple questions within that. So the loops that I was talking about, this is for advertising. So from 900 million records, if I go to page 2, is there any advertising? Let's see. That is also an ad. Page 3, is there an ad? So these ads are sticky or they change. Ads are sticky. So what they've done, top 3 results and last few results is always ads. So as a user, you would never realize when you're clicking on ad or not, right? They're making their money and customers are being, customers are happy because they get the information that they're looking for, right? But as a user, one API with just one keyword, Google, when on page load, nothing happened. Okay, so let's go to Google. What happens on page load? Nothing happened on page load. Sometimes you might see this Google is written in a different way based on the type of day it is. If it's a Independence Day, you will see something different here. Have you guys noticed that?
Yeah.
That's an API call. So it will find the top activity on that day or the top festival on that day, and it will change this accordingly in Google. So it calls an API, but right now it is not doing anything. Okay, now when I say mortgage, it hits an API based on event. Event is user has typed mortgage. Based on that, it returns 900 million records in less than 65 seconds this time. Less than 1 second, of course, but like 650 milliseconds is what I can call. And in each of this result, you have this information. It's all been given from backend. Now from here, if you click on news, it just shows you mortgage related news. And these are different categories. If I click on maps, these are all mortgage maps. Like banks near me or mortgage people who are offering mortgage near me. If I click on images, videos, or more, books, flights, it will all show me the similar results. Right? This is all. When you do anything here, it's all calling the API. Every time whenever you go and type find restaurants near me, what it's doing, it's taking your IP address, it's taking your location from your phone, if you allowed that. If not, then it will tell you to set up change your settings. It will find your zip code based on where you are and will show you restaurants nearby you. It's all through an API. It takes input as a restaurant. Second, your location. Third is near me. So within 5 miles around me. That near me, whenever we say near me, what that near me looks like, right? 5 miles near me. Show me all the restaurants available within 5 miles of radius of this particular location. It will show you all these results here now. How many results is required? It runs 58 million results in less than 0.5 seconds. Are you guys understanding now how the backend is connected with the front end?
Yeah.
This is going to help you now in help you understand SQL queries, which is our next topic. Any questions so far?
No.
Is it all making sense or it's getting complicated?
Kind of mix. Like now we have an idea how database work, backend things work, but not in depth.
Yeah,
At
I can
least
tell
we
you
have an idea.
get this understanding. It took me at least 4 or 5 years. What I'm sharing with you right now, just to get this consistency in my understanding that how this works all together.
Yeah.
At a high level, if I want to understand, if I want to put in few lines, before putting this in few lines, it took me 4 or 5 years to really brainstorm with myself and understand that this is how all this works. Of course, because when you don't have any experience in the beginning, you may not know how all this thing works, right?
Yeah. Yeah. True.
And there are different type of APIs which you want to remember. There's something called get, post, put, and delete. 4 different APIs. And let me explain you what they are. When you find any website on Google here, do you think I can change this website? I can change any content on this website, or I can just click and view it. It's a read-only mode, right? Am I right?
Yeah. True.
It's a read-only mode. When you go to Facebook, can you change someone else's post?
No. We can tag someone, but we cannot change their.
You can comment on someone's post, right?
Exactly.
You can like, you can dislike that post. If that customer is blocked, if the user has blocked it, then you cannot even do that.
Yeah.
Right? So when you call API, even when you click thumbs up, you don't know you're calling an API.
Oh, really?
The moment you click on thumbs up on Facebook, it has called an API to update that count from whatever the count was previously, from 3 to 4. It happens with the help of API. So you see that you clicked on thumb icon and it instantly showed you from 3 to 4. All these calls have been executed behind the scene. That's all non-functional requirement, right? How quickly, how fast it should be. When I was working on a social media application for one of my company, when I click on thumb, it used to take 3 seconds to show that. By that time, customers already clicked 3 times. And when you click on that thumb again, what happens? It removes that like.
Yeah. I like it.
It was a very pathetic experience. So you want to make sure that your APIs are responding really well. And this is where the architecture of the entire system comes in the picture, right? If your architecture is not good, you will not be able to do things faster way. So over here, everything that you do on Google here, it's all get. What is get? Get me information for mortgage. Get me information for restaurants around me. Get me information for the ATMs around me. Get me information for this particular question. It's all readable information for you on Google. So whenever you put any information here, it's always calling get API, GET, get API, which means the only purpose of get API is to take the request from customer, put it to database will send the results back, will show you in read-only format. You cannot change anything here. All you can do is read this information. Are you with me?
Yep. Yes.
But when you go to Bank of America's apply now page, it is not refreshed. Oh, man. I don't have energy to go back to Bank of America's apply page, so I'll probably open this one, Academy Mortgage. From here, whenever you put this information, you are able to change this information, right? You are able to submit this information, right? When I click on submit, it is going to add a new record in database. Am I right?
Yeah.
When I searched something for mortgage, I just got the results in return. It did not add anything. But now I'm going to add a record here by putting my first name, last name, my email ID. This record needs to be stored in some table, in some database. Are you with me?
Yeah.
This is called post. Why Facebook is calling post? When you want to create a new post, right? Why Facebook is calling it as post? Because it is posting something to database. You are adding information as a customer to database. That's why it's called post. Are you following?
Yeah.
It's like creating a new entry, right? Now for the same entry, there is something called edit post. I can create and I can edit my post as well, right? On Facebook. When I edit my post, it is going to call put API, P-U-T, put API, which means it will not create a new record. It will update an existing record. So which means if you have created post A, if you want to change the link in post A, you can just right click, select edit post, change that link to something else. In the same post information, that link will be changed to link B. But in database, it is not creating another record. When I say another record, this is one record. One line is one record. One row is one record. Second row is second record. Third row is third record, right? So when customer selects edit post, it's not creating a new record here. All it is doing is it is updating this URL that we had here. It is going to update this URL to something else. That's it. So it's called put. It's like an update. So create, update, and read. Three permissions. When we create this permissions matrix, this one over here, we have to create permissions based on these four things: create, update, read, and delete. These are the only four actions anyone can take. Correct? With any information that you see, either you can read it, either you can edit it, either you can create it, or you can delete it. So same applies here. I'm calling a post API to post this information first time. But second time, if I want to just change my phone number for that application, I'll have to call put API. And if I want to delete my record, when I tell customer, when I call some company and say, hey, delete my credit card information, they're going to call delete API. Some basic four functions: get, post, put, and delete. And these APIs are named the same way. If you remember, we looked at this mock-up Postman.
So when someone asks any company to unsubscribe them from the email list, is it that deleting? Is this
delete their email ID? Yes.
Okay.
Delete their email ID. I think I showed you there was something called get there. In the photo here, you see this get. This particular API is a get API. So get API, what happens is you put a request, you get a response back. If this get becomes post, which means you can submit information from customer can submit information and gets into the database.
Okay.
Put will be an updating an existing record. So in Easy Nesting website, if I want to change this particular customer's phone number, right? I'll just go ahead and edit. When I click on edit, I change this Tucker lane to Tucker lanes, for example. I've called put API here. Records updated successfully. Now see, the address is changed to Tucker lanes, right? Yeah. That's the put API. If I want to delete this user, I don't have this functionality in my system right now. But there is a way where if I just put a delete button, I click on delete, this customer record will be deleted. Okay. I have that for the jobs though. So if I am in the jobs here, I click this job, and over here, job status, you see this delete jobs.
Yeah.
I click this delete jobs for test customer. Okay. So I can do this. I have an option to delete all jobs or single job. I'm just deleting single job. I'll click on submit. This job deleted successfully, which means it's called delete API. But when I create a job, this is create job. When I create this job first time for this particular customer.
Get API.
Right? This is no. Create is post, right? We are adding information.
Post is updating, right? I'm sorry.
Post is updating. Put is updating. Post is create.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Put is update. Post is create. Get is read. Get is read. Post is create.
Okay.
And put is update. Sorry, put is update. Yes. And delete is delete. So I can go ahead and create a job here. The moment I create this job, post is nothing but whenever you post anything, it's a new record. right? You post a news, you post something on Facebook, so you receive post mails, right? You receive post mails on your in your mailbox. So you receive posts. Post is anything that is new. It is added first time. Put is updating that. And over here, when I add a new job here, like grid control, I'll add all this information and click on submit. The moment I click on submit, it's going to call put API. Sorry, it's going to call post API. Once this job is created, it will show up here. Now I want to, when the job shows up here, I want to change this job information, which means I can change the date to something else. I can change the job instructions or anything. And I click on submit, it will call put API. But if I want to delete, it will be deleting. So you see this update is put, complete is put, reschedule is also put because my job status is being updated here.
So for any action on website, there is always an API running on behind for any action.
Yes.
Okay.
Always, whenever there is a data.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Data. So that will be a question. That is the question that we want to find out when you are building any kind of page. What information on that page is controlled by API, which is it is dynamic, and what information on the page is being controlled by content management system, like WordPress, Wix. There are some other systems as well available outside. Every company has their own systems. Does this make sense to you all now?
Yeah.
I know it's very technical in nature, but I think if you understand this class, if you understand this much, you will be able to get into a conversation with any developer and any designer.
Yeah.
Does it help?
Yeah, it does.
Cool. I wanted to start. This is all part of functional requirement document, data mapping, data flow diagram. They are all part of functional requirements document. We are going to talk about functional requirements document for another hour or two tomorrow as well. And but I wanted to start SQL, at least touch the SQL today, so we can finish that tomorrow. Let me give you just like few minutes break, and I'll be back. I'll just have some water and come back.
Okay.
Hey everyone, you there?
Yep. Yes.
All right. I had one interesting thing to share with you. Let me see if I can find that. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not mean to make you guys hungry. I'm just trying to find one.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Hamburger. Okay. It's lunchtime.
Yeah. Hamburger. Stack. Yes, I got it. Okay. So this is our front end. This is all back end. We talked about it, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. In between there are APIs. The APIs that we talked about is this one, REST and SOAP APIs. This APIs talks to the database. These are databases: PostgreSQL, DB2, MySQL, NoSQL. These are different type of databases. Okay, the most common one is MySQL and Mongo. Mongo is not part of this, but most common is MySQL and Mongo. DB2 and PostgreSQL, people have started using it, but not that much. We have used PostgreSQL for easy nesting for our company. The API is here, and front end. What is front end? Front end is whatever you see on the Bank of America's page, right? The pretty form. That form could be created using multiple languages. So these are different type of languages that is required for that to create that form. This API is created in the form of JSON or XML. This APIs will talk to this database. This database will be stored on this server. This APIs will talk to this databases using this language to pull the response from this database and send you response back. Are you guys following?
Yeah.
Do you want the link for this? This is list of all the technologies that you could ever think of in IT. We don't need to know all those things. Developers has to know all this information. For us, the only information that we need to be aware of is, hey, for front end, these are the kind of languages someone can use. These are the APIs that we need to create. These APIs will talk to this database using these languages, and these databases are stored on this server. That's the hamburger. That's your food for today. Okay. Let's talk more about this now. So we talked about front end, we talked about the API, we talked about these servers, but we did not talk about how these APIs are pulling information from this server, which is this, right? How they are doing that. We did not cover that yet. So of course, we're not going to cover the coding language here. It's not part of the class. But when they write this coding language in PHP or Node.js or MongoDB, when they write this, it calls a query in database. So this API will call this code. This code will call a SQL query. SQL query. That query will call this database and produce the result and sends it back. SQL. What is SQL? Structured query language. Did you guys understand the flow? From front end customer submits something, API takes that request, API converts that request into this code, PHP or one of this code. This code will now call SQL, structured query language, to talk to this database. That is the only language this database understands, SQL. This database does not understand any other language than SQL. So when this code is going to call this database, they have to write a SQL query for that, and then it will send you a response back in terms of SQL as well. That response will be converted to PHP, or again this code, this response will be taken into API, and now API will be showing it back to the users here. So earlier what I said, that there is one medium in between the front end and the back end is API. It's not just one. There are two more ways, two more layers in that. After API, you have this code written by someone, and this code will call SQL query, and the query will get that information from database. It's not that API gets that information from database directly. It's API talking to this code is talking to SQL, and the SQL's queries will give this information back. Okay. Anyone who knows all these things, that person is called full stack developer. Or there are front end developers and back end developers. People who deal with this layer in between, everything but this buns is back end developer. These are network guys. These are full stack developers. They know everything. And these are just front end developers. So when you talk about front end developers, this is what they know. When you talk about back end developers, these are the things that they would know. And networking guys would probably know about this. Server guy, network guy. Are we good?
Yeah.
All right, let's look at SQL now. SQL is, you all have used SQL unknowingly by using Google. So let me show you how. So over here for searching this, what was my keyword here? Hamburger plus and full stack developer. So what it says, the full stack here, right? And hamburger. So it find a match for hamburger and full stack. Am I right? There is and condition in between. Am I right?
Yeah.
If I would say, let's see now what it shows. It says full stack burger. This is not a good idea. Let's do it this way. Let's find James Bond. Okay. So when you look for James Bond, the first results that you are seeing here, you have about 688 million results returned in less than or little more than 1 second. It has found people who has first name as James and last name as Bond. There is and in between.
Yeah.
You just don't know, but there is an end that is being executed, right? When I look for restaurants near me, restaurants and location, am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Indirectly, I've given the location here, right?
Yeah.
So when API is running, so when you type this, it will call an API. API will call that PHP or Python code. That code will call a SQL query. That SQL query is going to get us result from the database. So in SQL, you need to write these queries. So as a BA, sometimes people might ask you in interview, have you written SQL queries? At your work, sometimes you might feel that people are writing SQL queries. So you should not be feeling that it's an unknown thing to you. SQL is very simple. It's called structured query language, and it's English without grammar. Okay, it's called English. It's literally English without grammar. So however you search here on Google, you need to search in a little similar fashion to search something in SQL. Like you'd write the queries in a similar way. I'll show you what happens and how it happens. Okay. Let's go back. So this is where it starts with the basic syntax. The first syntax is the select statement. So you see this command here, select. This is how you write command in SQL. Select asterisk from table name. Mm-hmm. So our table name is here from the customers table. This is the customers table. Okay, this table will be existing within database, within some server.
Yeah.
Are you guys clear with that at least?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I want to find out. So asterisk stands for all, everything. Select everything from customers table and let's see what it produces. So if I write this query, right? which means if a customer searches on Google and says customer, right? Like customer only, what kind of results he will get it back. So API will call the Python code will call a SQL query. That SQL query would be this. When I click on this run SQL, it gives me all these results, 91 records. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Now, so if a customer has searched here, show me restaurants near me. I'll just say restaurants for now, not near me, okay? Restaurants. Oh, these are the restaurants, right? What do I have in the restaurant? I have the stars, I have the distance, I have the address, I have the dining options, I have the name, I have the pictures, right? And how many of them I have here? If I click on that, it does not give me a number, but I think it would be about 10 pages. Next, let's do that. So this list just doesn't get end, right? It could be in millions of records, right? So when you type restaurant in front end on Google, basically what's happening after an API call, API is making another call to the SQL query to database. So the database can give these results back. What is the query here? Select all restaurants from restaurant. So table name is restaurant records for our example purpose. Right now it says customer, but for our purpose it will be restaurant table. This is table name, okay? Remember, this is the table name. Okay. So select all restaurants from a restaurant table. The moment I do this, I run this query, it will give me millions of records here, which will have ratings, dining options, phone number, website, photos, all those things. So I have this millions of records. This millions of records will be converted into, again, XML or JSON format like this. Response, right? The way request was gone, now the response will come back in a similar way. This is where the loops come in the picture. That for this one record, we will have name, dine-in, photos, telephone number, website link, ratings, and whatnot. And that loop will repeat now. If we have 1 million records, that loop will repeat for 1 million times. If I have my students, like 4 students in my class, I need to know their first name, last name, phone number, email ID, and their expertise. Now, if I have 1 million students in my class, I will have 1 million loops like this to get the information for all the students, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So this information will be translated into this heavy response, and this response will literally look like 1 million lines of code. But you don't have to worry about that because it is pretty simple. All that is happening in this is there is a small loop being repeated 1 million times. That's it. And that information is converted into a beautiful page now, which looks like this. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So this query, when you enter, this is what you get the results. Now it gets a little more complicated from here. So you need to find out, hey, I need to find out restaurants only that are near me. So you put end condition, or you find out, hey, I want to find Italian or Indian restaurants. Hey, I want to find out houses near me made by only grand homes. That is how you search on Google.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, I want to find out if there is an 18-month-old baby at home, what kind of products I could buy for them. So I've given what information? 18 months old baby. I want to buy products. I'm asking a question. I'm not saying and here. I'm saying any kind of products, which means or. Am I right?
Yeah.
So when you are typing these sentences here in Google, you do not know, but your brain is actually executing these queries behind the scene. It's English without grammar. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So now see here, customers. Now we'll go deep in this one, how it works. And this is literally calling the table, okay? These tables are stored with these columns, like we have, this is the table, right? This is the data mapping table. We have how many columns we have? Probably 25, 30 columns in this, right? So when I call data mapping table, it will show me all 30 columns and all customers. So records are always, so this is called something called schema, right? What is schema? That if you have 5 tables, those 5 tables are talking with each other. When you go to Walmart, there is a table for payment, there's a table for credit card, there's a table for product, and there's a table for a customer. Those 4 tables are talking to each other to complete a transaction. Are you guys with me?
Yeah.
That's some schema. There is some schema being built up there. When you build that schema now, over here, if I want to find out payment, if I query payment table, it will give me all the records. What is record? All the customers who have made payment on that specific day or until now. I will get all those records with all these columns, which would be payment amount, payment date, payment type, payment card used, payment, if there is any refund, if there is any discount, if there is any coupon, all this will be part of it, right? So as a customer, sorry, as a businessman, I need to choose when I'm showing results to customer. So for Bank of America, I was just showing you. Where did Bank of America? So for Bank of America, I was choosing to see only this information: rate, APR, points, and monthly payment. But in reality, when I query this table, when I query the rates table, in reality, I could be getting 50 more columns of information. But I have shrunk that information to show me only 4 information on the front end, which is APR, rates, points, and monthly payment. Are you with me?
Yeah.
How would I do that? You just go back to SQL query and you will call out the column names here. And let me give you an example if they've done this. Okay, over here. So you see this now. If I run this query, I've called, these are my column names. So I will just get these 2 columns in return. You see this? Customer name and city. Whereas in this one, we had all the columns being returned. So this asterisk stands for number of columns you want to call.
Okay.
Am I making sense?
Do we need to write down after asterisk? We need to mention 5 columns or 6, or do we need to mention each and every title for each column?
No, we need to mention each and every title.
Okay.
Which columns you want. It will find an exact match.
Okay.
And SQL is not the case sensitive. So if you write this customer name with capital letter or with small letter, it doesn't matter. As long as it finds the exact match, it's space sensitive for sure. So you cannot put a space here. In database world, you would never put a space.
Okay.
It would never be first space name. It will be first underscore name. Because spaces are considered deadly for databases. They don't put spaces in between. It makes it harder for someone to write the query. So we try to always use it in this way. There is no space in between, or if there is a space, they will rather use underscore or sometimes hyphen like this. But there will never be a space in between. Okay. So this is how you call. So now you see, right? When you go to Bank of America, I just got this 4 records in return, this 4 columns in return, and not the entire table for rates, because someone has written the query where it says rate, APR, points, and monthly payment from pricing table. So it will just return these 4 columns. You convert this response into JSON or XML, and then it will get displayed here up from that API to this one. Is it making sense now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you guys excited to hear this, or you guys are feeling stressed out with this?
No, it's fine. It's making sense now.
Cool. And trust me, guys, you are at a point where you could talk to any IT guy now, and it would literally make sense to you. You are in a position to ask some valid questions going forward.
Yeah.
When they start talking about the code language, yeah, I'm using Java, I'm using this. Don't get carried forward. Bring them back. Hey, why exactly are you building this project? What is the reason behind that? What are you trying to solve? What kind of coding languages are you using? Just go back to our hamburger example, right? Are you a front-end developer or you are a full-stack developer?
Yeah.
What kind of SQL queries you have written? What databases you are using? Am I making sense to you?
Yep. Yeah.
So you know a lot. I think when you start having conversations with people who you know around, you will see the value of knowledge that you have achieved so far. And I want you to do that now, because you need to gain confidence, right?
Yeah.
Although I keep saying that you know a lot, if you don't feel that, you would not be confident. Correct?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so let's go back to SQL again, and We'll continue SQL again tomorrow, but I just want to give you a flavor of it today, at least so
So
you
do we
understand.
need to run the queries, SQL queries at work for BA or no?
In last 12 years, probably I think I would have written SQL query maybe once or twice.
Oh, okay.
If you go into a technical BA role, then
Mm-hmm.
they might expect you to do this. But
Okay.
when I go as a product owner, or because I'm into product management world, I don't really write this much. But as I said, if you are in a world where you have a business analyst and product owner in your company, and you are a business analyst, then there might be expectations that you would do this. And again, you just have to go to you don't have to remember these commands. Just go to w3schools.com, understand what you want to find from the database, copy the syntaxes, and replace the syntaxes with the actual queries. These are the list of syntaxes, right? We don't want to do all those things for our class because it will be a SQL class otherwise. But there are some important commands that we need to know as a BA that we will be covering in our class today and tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. So over here now, what I'm saying, select distinct. These are the top key ones. So until these wildcards, and then this joins. These are the only ones we need to know. Joins and until this count, sum, and average. So over here, it's distinct. What I'm trying to find out is, let's read the command. Select country. Again, don't get confused. When I say select country, this is the column name. From customers table, I just want to see country, right? So if I try it yourself, I run this query, I'll just see country here in it now. Now I want to find out distinct countries. You see, Mexico is repeated twice. Mexico is repeated twice, 3 times. There is Argentina, there is Germany, France, UK is repeated multiple times, right? But I want to find out distinct countries, which means if there are 91 records, does not mean there are 91 unique countries in this. I want to find out how many unique countries we have. So how could we do that? Let's go back, use this command, distinct. I just put here distinct.
So how will it sort out the distinct out of it?
Yeah, you see that. I just write this distinct and I click on run SQL. I just got 21 records. This command is used to, when you say distinct, you see it is in blue, right? Whatever is in blue, SQL has defined it. SQL is defined. Whenever someone uses this command, SQL knows that they're asking for unique records in that particular column. So unique records in the particular columns are 21.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
When would you use this? Select distinct country from Uber table. So how many countries Uber is supporting right now? You could find from this. Or from rides request. From how many countries we are getting ride on daily basis. We could see that as a country. Right? These are the different type of countries. Am I making sense?
Yeah. So we can run, let's say if we are running these queries, we are running it for a particular server to find to extract the data from, not the server, from the data. To extract all this information.
Servers, right? So you are ultimately querying a server. Under server, you are querying a specific database. Under specific database, you can be querying one table or multiple tables.
Okay.
When you have multiple tables, that's where you have these joins. But if you're querying, right now we are querying single table.
Okay.
Am I making sense?
Yeah. I get it.
Now I'm seeing, see, now this is all English now, right? If I say select distinct country from customers, but I want to find out where country is Mexico. So I will just add a clause here, which will say select distinct country from customers where country equals Mexico. So it will just return one record now instead of 21 records.
Yeah.
Why do we need to do that? We do this because now if you see, go back to our mortgage example, Bank of America. So now what I'm saying is select distinct, I will not require that. Select APR rate, points and monthly payment from pricing table where product name equals 30-year fixed, 15-year fixed, 5-1 variable. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So over here, if I run this command, let's go back. I have forgotten, I don't remember the exact syntaxes because it's been a very long, but let's use the syntaxes that we have here. So don't run into issues. So this is how you run the country. So I have to just to put this superscripts here. Let's try this. And now you will see, you'll just get one. So So you got all the records. Because I've selected here, select, I have not matched distinct here with it. Because I think if I match distinct here, it will not work. So if I have clicked, if I have used the same table, I want to find all the records from Mexico, which are this one. So I've got 5 rows. Instead of 91 records, I'm getting only 5 records in place, right? And you see this customer ID, this is like a roll number in our school, a unique ID. This is called primary unique key, primary key. Primary key is the key which you need when you use multiple tables. When you create these joins, you need to map those using primary keys, and we'll cover that in our next class. But I would like to just pause here, and we'll continue this topic tomorrow again, as my laptop started behaving weird right now. But any questions?
No, I don't have any question.
Yeah, no, we're good. Yeah.
So guys, if you understand today's class, trust me, you exactly know. I cannot say exactly know, but you know the process of developing the software.
Exactly. At least we know the back end stuff a little bit, because I was always confused when I was writing the BRDs. Like I always had that thought in my mind, okay, what's happening on back end? So now it's like much clearer. Okay, what's happening on back end?
You understand, right? So see, if we again look at this full stack hamburger. So developers have so much work. Like it's not an easy job.
Exactly.
Although I used to call them that they're like laborers for us, right? That's not really true, right? They're uneducated people.
Yeah.
It needs a really an intelligent person to create a right algorithm to make sure that this entire flow is working very well.
Exactly.
But the way they think is very similar as opposed to when someone is building, just when someone puts the bricks, right? Mm-hmm. It's a heavy lifting job. They have to use their brain, but they are not going to think about business concepts. They're not going to think about the user impacts.
Yeah.
That's why that's their weakness. And that is the reason B and product owner role comes in the picture. They are not good at managing timelines. They're not good at managing teams. They're not good at managing the entire project. That's where Scrum Master comes in the picture. Right? So we let them build this code. We let them build this pipeline. We let them spend their time on this because that's what they are getting paid for. And rest all the things we define on our side on how it should work. Like that's why we create the model house for them so that they can straight away go into this code and start writing these things. Just imagine now whatever analysis you've done for lead ag marketing, right? If you give that to a developer without doing this marketing or without doing this writing, without writing these documents on your side, without creating these process flows, without understanding that criteria, how much work would it be on him? He will just spend first 2 weeks to understand the project instead of writing the code.
Yeah.
And you are paying him like $100 every hour, right? So for 2 weeks you've already given him probably how much? 800 into 5 for $8,000 just for no reason, just to understand the requirements, which is your job. Right? And that's expensive. That's an expensive resource because even if they spend 2 weeks, they will not spend it the way a BA or a PO would spend because they would never understand what is the user impact, what is the business impact to this. Am I making sense?
Yep.
So that's why we want to make sure that when they start writing this code, when the moment sprint starts, this is what they're going to do. The moment sprint.
Small request. Can you share this today's recording today itself so that tomorrow when we come back, we can go through it again and
try my best, but the problem is that when the moment I stop sharing, the moment I close this recording session today, it will take at least 4 to 5 hours to get this recorded.
Okay, no problem.
Because it takes about 4 to 5 hours to record it on my laptop. After that, it takes another hour or two to put it on YouTube.
Okay, no problem.
But I'll try my best. If I'm able to see that this is recorded by today evening or whenever it gets recorded, I'll try to share the link.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah.
But I hope today's class was very informative for you and you really learned something new.
Yeah.
I would appreciate your feedback. If you think it was simple enough for you to understand, it's my win. If you think it was difficult, I'll have to still come up with newer concepts in my next class to explain things.
No, it was really simple. The way you explained was good. The only thing is that these terminology and these, concepts are new. So it is little overwhelming for us to understand. But
Definitely.
the way you explained, you did your 100%. There's no
Those terminologies, as I said, right? You need to remember these terminologies because we will be using this terminology in our interview.
correct.
And you will see people are talking in this language every now and then.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right?
But good that you explained us, because if somebody will ask us what is Python and what is SQL, we should know these terms and we should not, be flat faced that okay, we are here in the interview but we don't know anything about it. So at
You
least
can,
on
you
the
can probably just read
surface.
one line. You can probably just read one or two lines on that hamburger, whatever technology you see there. Just go ahead and search like a couple of lines and make your matrix if you want to. What is SQL? What is Python? But you don't need to know all those things, to be honest. As long as you know SQL, you know application programming interface, which is JSON and XML. HTML is something that you should be knowing what HTML is about, and CSS. I think that's all you need to know, to be honest. Doesn't have to go into too much of coding, and don't even use those keywords in your interview because it will put you in trouble.
Okay.
This is for your knowledge. When you talk to a developer, this is what they're going to talk. And when you're talking to a developer in your interview, it might be a good idea to talk about, hey, I've used this API. Do you get APIs, post APIs, put APIs? I really enjoy using Postman tool because it's a smart way to find out before the page is built that, hey, is the product working properly or not, right? So you get that confidence when you're talking with him. And he gets impressed because he's looking for a person who understands his language.
Yeah. So in a panel, will there be a couple of people, like including the developer and
The panel, it could be
be to
one-on-one.
be? Oh, okay. Okay.
And it could be like one-on-one would be like you have 3 or 4 rounds, 30 minutes with each person.
Okay.
So for my current company, I think I had about 9 rounds of interview, if I'm not wrong, but that's because I had applied for a full-time job. For consulting job, probably 2 or 3 rounds is max. Cool. All right, all. Have a good Saturday. I'll probably connect with you all tomorrow, and I'll try to send this recording as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do not forget to complete your WhatsApp exercise. If you have time, please focus on that today and try to complete that.
Can you send us that recording from September 19? That this is the one which is missing with the user stories.
Sure, I can send it to you.
Okay,
fine.
perfect. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Take care.
Thank
Have
you.
fun.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.